Welcome back. This is our second tutorial on MySQL, and we shall continue from where we stopped the last time. So let's connect to our SQL server using the L300 demo connection we created the last time. Okay, so now we are at the SQL editor, and then we can find our connection details here. So it's in the information pane, the session view. So we have the connection details. Yeah, the name of the connection is L300 demo. We have the host, the ports, the login user. We are using the root, and then the server we are using is MySQL Community Server GPL. So that is the server we are using, and this is the version of it. So that is the 8.0.34, and then we have the connector version. So that is C++ 8.1.0. All right, so now let's get back to the coding pane where we have our SQL commands. Okay, so the last time we had a quick tour of MySQL Workbench, and then we created a schema, yeah, and we activated the schema. Okay, so activating your schema is an important step that you have to repeat anytime you connect your database server. Okay, so if you look at the navigator, you find that we have so many databases or schemas here, and the database management system wouldn't know which one we are working in if we don't activate one of them. Even if you are having only one database, you should activate it if you are to work on it. Okay, all right, so let's activate. Okay, so when we look at the output, we can see that we have successfully activated the DB300 database, and when you go to the navigation pane, we'll find that yeah, is bold compared to the rest of the databases we have there. So now that we have an active database, we can go to the next step, which is to create tables. MySQL Workbench is a relational database management system, and in relational database management system, we create relational databases, and relational databases are the databases that store data in tables. So it means after creating your database, which is the DB300, you have to create tables if you are to store data in the DB300 database we have just created. Okay, yeah, so we're going to create the tables in a different script altogether. So let's go to the quick tool here, right below the file menu, and then we open another SQL file. Yeah, so we are going to name this SQL file as DB300 tables. Okay, so let's say DB okay, so the tables, I'll just make it TBS. All right, so let's save that. Okay, so now we have our scripts to create our database tables. Okay, so for this demo, we are going to use the student performance management information systems database. And if you are to create a student performance management information system, you have to identify your entities. Okay, you identify your entities, attributes, and relationship. Then you can model it using ER diagrams. We have done that in class already, so we are transferring that design to actual database. Okay, yeah, so usually the identifying your entities, relationships, and then the attributes of the entities is so important, because when you are transferring your design to actual database, the entities become the tables. Okay, and the entities are just what the things that you are interested in collecting information about, or you are interested in storing information about. Those are your entities. And when you look at the student performance management information system, we will be interested in what, collecting information about what students, that is student personal details. So you have a student entity. Then we'll also be interested in the courses that these students take, and that is what our second entity course. And then we'll also be interested in what the examination, what records of students, and that will give us our third entity, exam. So we have three entities: student, course, and exam. There will be some more entities, but for the purposes of our demonstration, we are going to limit ourselves to our three entities: students, course, and exam. Okay. So now that we are clear about our entities, let's start creating what our tables. And the first table will be what, the student table, because we have what, a student entity. So let's start create table, create table students. Okay, then you open parenthesis and then what, provide your attributes, which becomes your columns in the table. Okay, so you provide your attributes in parenthesis and separate them with commas. Okay, so let's bring the first attribute, which is what, the student ID. Yeah, so you either bring underscore ID or you just put them together. Okay, you can leave a space between the names. Okay, so student ID. Then the next thing you have to do is to declare your data type. So you have to look at what the kind of data you are going to store. Is it fixed length or is it variable length? Is it numeric or is what, string? Okay, yeah, when we look at your student IDs, they are numbers or it's numeric, but we are not going to use them for arithmetic. So they can be considered as what, character. Okay, yeah. So, and now what kind of character is that? All your student IDs are of the same length, so we call that fixed length. And when you have fixed length character data type, yeah, you use what, the character data type. When you have fixed length data, you have what, you use character data type. Okay, so let's go for our character data type here. So that is car, and then we have to define the size. Okay, so all your student IDs have the size of what, or the length of 8 characters. So we define that. And usually it's good for you to define the length because it saves what, yeah, the time used in searching your database, yeah, when you are trying to retrieve records. Okay, so you don't want to create some what, empty spaces. Yeah, so if you declare more than necessary, it means there will be what, empty spaces that the search engine will go through anytime it is performing a search. Okay, so we have to be judicious with what the sizes we declare. Then another important thing is to what, to indicate your primary key. And because the student ID is the primary key, so we can simply make it the primary key by what, adding primary key here. Okay, then we'll end it with what, a comma. All right, so the primary keys are important. Without the primary key, you cannot uniquely identify your records. Okay, and the relational database will not what, accept your input if you don't what, have primary key, or if you don't declare some of your columns of your field as what, a primary key field. Now let's go to the next one, which is what, the student first name. So we can have the first name here. Okay, and then what will be the data type? So this time we have what, a variable length data, because all your first names are going to be of different sizes, so we call it a variable what, length data. So because it's variable, we use what, variable character. It is variable and then it is what, character type. Then the size, we'll look at the possible what, yeah, the possible longest name, first name we have, and then we can what define the size. Okay, so let's say 50. I'm assuming that no name is what longer than 50 characters. Okay, then we'll have to what either make it what a required or a mandatory field, because I mean if you want students to provide their names at all costs, then we'll make it what, yeah, not null. So this makes it what mandatory for the students. Okay, then let's go to what the last name. So the data type will be varchar. So we have varchar, and then we can what assume that the size wouldn't be more than 50 characters, and then we'll make it what mandatory as well, so not null. All right, now let's go to the next one. We can bring the date of birth, so I'll make it DOB for short, and then the data type will be date, and we will need to what add a comment here. I have a reason for using shorthand for what the date of birth. I mean, usually when it comes to what manipulating your data, you need what shorter field names. Okay, so if you can make them shorter, I mean, it helps you when you are what writing queries to manipulate your database. Okay, so we can put a comment here just to remind people that oh DOB means what date of birth. Okay, so so we can just say date of birth of what student. That is the meaning of DOB here. Okay, so now let's get to what the next. Yeah, so we'll have to put a comma here, and then we can go to the next line where we can what add the student gender. So we'll be interested in collecting the gender information of students. So for gender we have options, so we can enumerate the options. So let's use enum data type. So we just have what female, and then we have what male. Okay, so now we have what our gender. Let's go to the next one. We can bring our phone number. So let's put them together. And the data type, we can use what several data types here. We can use integer because phone is numbers. We can use integers, we can use numeric, we can use what character. Okay, if you are not going to use it for arithmetic, you can what I mean regard it as character. And in this case I'm going to go for character because usually when you go for what integer, it's going to omit the first zero that begins our phone numbers. Okay, now we have to declare the size. So for local numbers is 10, but I mean if you have to add a country code, that will be what 4 additional characters you'll be adding, or in some cases what 16. So let's go for the highest possible, which is 16. So it will take care of what local numbers and international numbers. All right, now let's go to the address. So the address, we are going to go for the streets name. Let's go for the street name, and the data type we can use what varchar, because the street names are going to be of different length. Yeah, so I'm assuming that no street has a name longer than what 100 characters. Then let's bring what the house number. Okay, so we'll have the house number here, and then for the house number we can go for character. We are assuming that we have what some format of numbering houses in Ghana. Yes, so and it shouldn't be more than 10 characters. Okay, all right, so usually you have to end all your what your columns. So each of the attribute becomes a column, so you have to end all your columns with a comma except the last one. So the last one I will not put a comma, and I'll close the bracket that we open at the beginning. Okay, So the beginning parenthesis, you need to close it. All right, now after closing it, you need to bring what we call the delimiter. So our delimiter here is what? A semicolon. Okay, so now we are done creating what? Our student table. Okay, and we can what? Execute the command using what? The middle execution or even the first one. The first one usually execute the entire script from beginning to end. Yeah, but the command we have is just one line. Okay, even though we have several lines, but it's one line. You can even see the indication from the beginning. There is a line, yeah, to the end. This shows that the whole code is seen as being, yeah, in one line. So that is something in one line. Okay, so let's execute using the middle execution. Okay, and all right, so we are told that our student table already exists. So because I created what some table already before the demo, so what I'll just do is to modify the name of the student, and then or I can drop the table that exists already. So in database, when you are deleting tables, we call it dropping the table. So let's drop what student. Okay, so let's drop table student. Okay, so I'll have to bring the table here, drop table, then you bring the name of what the table, so drop table student. So this will allow us to what create our student table. So you can see that this student table is dropped, and then I'll get back to what my table, and now we are allowed to create our student table because it doesn't exist. Yeah, so before the video I had created what yeah, a test demo, and then I created the student table, so I should have dropped it before what coming to start. Okay, yeah, so all the same, we've learned something from that. So let's execute our student table again. And one thing you should bear in mind is that you can only execute what? A table once. Okay, once you create a table, if you try to what? Recreate it again without dropping it, then you get an error. So you can see that my table has been created successfully. Now if I try to run the same command, I'll get an error because the table student exists already. Okay, yeah, so at times you create table, you want to be running the command, then you run, you get an error, then you are what yeah, discouraged. You think you've committed an error, but the table just exists. So you can read the error message, and then you what get to know that the table exists already, so you can create it. Okay, so now we've created what our student table, so we can what look at the design of this table by going to a database, reverse engineer, and then you will select what our connection. So our first connection was what the connection we are using is what the L300 demo connection. So let's take it, let's hit next, and then we'll hit next, we'll select the database, let's hit next, next, execute. Okay, next, and we are done. Okay, so now you can see what the database we just created. So this is the design of the database we just created. Okay, yeah, this is it. We have what the students, we have the first name, last name, date of birth, gender, phone number, street name, and then what, house number. So this is the structure of the table. So we can also describe what okay, don't save. Let's get to the general script. Okay, so after creating your table, you can also look at the structure by describing it. So describe student, that is the name of the table, student. Okay, so let's execute it. Okay, so this is going to give us the structure of our table student, and then you can see that We have what the student ID, the first name, last name, gender, date of birth, gender, phone number, and so on. And they've indicated the data types, and the null type is indicated here, and also the key type, whether is a primary key, is also indicated here. So that is our student table. So we are going to end it here, and then create the second table, that is a course table, in our next video. Okay, see you in the next video.